Goods, services, real estate, cars, and jobs. Go to where K-Man searches. Go to ektrade.com.
Views and opinions expressed expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
And hello, K-Man, and welcome to Straight Talk. I'm your host, Austin Harris.
And I'm Ellio Solomon. Of course, welcome to Straight Talk. Number to call here in the studio if you want to join in the conversation or carry us in a completely different direction, 745-2626.
And
WhatsApp.
And WhatsApp number, 928-2562. Certainly, if you don't want to spend those valuable credits and want it for free, well, you can call us at 928-2562. And by call, I mean, of course, leave us a audio note or a traditional WhatsApp text message, which, of course, we'll happily read and share whilst we're live on the air. Whilst we are broadcasting, of course, as always, live on your radio dial at Bobo 103.1 FM. We're also simulcasting live over YouTube at Straight Talk Radio Show and on Instagram at the Rec Room 345. And soon, I keep saying soon, we are going to be broadcasting or streaming rather.
I don't know, you're saying that with a certain
Facebook.
You're saying that with a certain level of
Authority in my voice?
no,
Bass in my voice?
I was thinking sarcasm,
Optimism?
facetious, disbelief.
Well, I'm trying to stay optimistic because I believe that in our heart we are getting closer and closer to making that a reality every day.
You got to enjoy these little moments, you know.
You do.
It's honestly, sometimes when everything comes out just perfect right away, it's not good.
No.
It's good when you can kind of trial through it. Natural tests of human.
Make you earn it. And
yeah,
therefore appreciate it better. When the good times are good, you appreciate those good
You're
times.
stealing
right?
the words from my mouth, Austin.
Yes. Well,
Whenever we pay for something or work hard for it, it's sweeter.
Yeah.
So you and I are going to enjoy it. Yesterday I was leaving and I said to myself, I was looking at you, but I said, I can't stop and bother Austin again. But I just wanted to say, we're a great team. I'm honored to be here with you.
Funny, I was thinking the same thing just this morning, actually.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was saying yesterday. I said, how life is just very, very interesting. I mean, think about it, 2006, 2009, and here we are again, 2025 in the year of our Lord. Wow.
As we say, my friend, it's got to be more than just coincidence that brought us back together again. And this morning, whilst I, too, was enjoying my cup of Morning Joe, whilst I was enjoying, by the way, that little colder weather. Remember yesterday I said that I was hoping to get a piece of the cold front from Jamaica?
I know how you love those.
I think, cold front as far as the weather is concerned is probably my favorite two words. Yes, we did get a piece of the cold front that was passing over Jamaica yesterday evening. We got it this morning because it was actually cold this morning. I remember it, but I was not complaining because just yesterday I was complaining of how surface of the sun it was.
Right.
And even today, during the day, because again, I made a point. So, okay, it was cool in the morning. Will it stick around during the day? So I made a point to go outside today. And whilst the sun was still there, there was a cool breeze coming across the island. So I was very pleased.
I know. I got a little bit of it this morning. I could just crack my window down. I felt that little breeze smoothing in, sipping in it. I was like, it was great.
Yes.
And by the way, in the spirit of transparency, I have a red cup here that I'm drinking from in the studio. Not putting emphasis too much on the red cup. It's
we're running out of colors in terms of coffee cups. So.
But the whole thing was, my colleague has finally taught me how to use this special Inker-Dinker machine.
Yes, the Keurig coffee maker.
The Keurig, yeah.
Yeah, it does simplify.
To make myself a cup of hot chocolate.
Yes. Well, I'm happy that, again, I can make you smile.
Yeah.
Put a smile on your face.
Put a smile on your face.
See, there you go.
Oh, yeah. Don't get me going again.
Listen, I keep telling the listening audience, wait till we come out with our Christmas album.
Yeah.
You think this talking is fantastic.
We should be doing that.
Wait till we should do a Christmas album. Singing all your favorite Christmas greats. Austin and Ellio. Yeah. Showing the other skill they have.
Yeah, they used to have some weird Santa songs too, What was it like? I don't know. It'll come to me. But you used to have some really, Santa smoking a cigar, all kinds of nonsense. Remember that?
Well,
That'd be
I know,
perfect.
I like Alan Jackson. And Alan Jackson, not only does he
I
sing
love Alan
country
Jackson.
well, but Alan Jackson sings gospel extremely well. And again, not his originals, but old favorites.
Yeah, I heard him sing
old,
it.
good old
How
hymnals.
Great Thou Art.
Yeah,
That's one of my
absolutely.
favorites.
Yeah, yeah, and What a Friend We Have in Jesus. And all of those songs. I mean, he does gospel really well, and I imagine he does also a great Christmas album. So, not saying we're anywhere near, the talent of Alan Jackson
I
or
know.
George Strait or
We can do
George
it.
Jones.
We can pull it off.
But yeah, we're going to definitely pull it off. Maybe get one or two eggnogs to, smooth the old vocal cords, and look out for that Christmas album from Straight Talk, Austin and Ellio.
So we got about how many months to practice now? 9?
9 at least. So we got to put in the time.
9 months seemed like a perfect amount of time for delivery.
We might have to go to.
You get that?
I got that.
You got that? Okay.
I got that.
Just
We might have
checking.
to We might have to schedule our retreat in the Brac in order to prepare for the album.
That would make perfect sense.
Because it would make perfect sense. The last time we were on a singing tour, it was in the Brac.
I mean,
if memory serves correct.
Yeah, it's perfect. Perfect.
Yes.
So we have a plan.
And I'm sure those audiences have been dying, waiting with bated breath. Are they ever going to come back to the Brac? Are they ever going to perform for us again?
We're going back to the Brac again.
That's right. A little tribute to Andy Martin there.
Mm-hmm.
One
We
of
got to
our
get him in the studio here,
favorite.
too.
We got to get good old Andy Martin in the studios. Hopefully, Andy Martin is listening. If you are Andy, we're talking about you, but in a good way.
Well, I did get
745-2626. Give us a call.
I did get a text from Barefoot.
You did?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well,
I mean, I
Barefoot,
can't-
if you're out there,
I
call us
can't
as
give
well.
too much of a complete expose, but, he did text me. I think it was something I sang on Radio Cayman. He said, "You'll listen to this."
I remember Barefoot in particular. Barefoot, probably more than any Caymanian artist, pushed the hardest in the early days of radio to get local musicians airplay.
The marketing.
And you gotta, if you're
He's
a
still
musician,
doing that.
and they're still doing it, and arguably more could be done. But there was a time that Barefoot, I'd give you his given name, but I don't want to give away his secret identity. Barefoot is his name. Barefoot Man in particular, like Superman, Barefoot Man. But he would, not call us every day, but certainly he would make a point to at least once a week touch base and say, "So
I didn't hear anything.
I didn't hear anything today. What's going on? What's the story?" So I think our only defense now is we work on a station that doesn't play music at all.
Well,
We're all talk.
I
So
remember-
sorry, Barefoot.
I
You're gonna
remember
have to
being
call up
very
somebody
young.
else.
I remember being very young and hearing Barefoot Man with the black like a ching ching. You remember that one?
Yes, yes.
Jesus, black like a ching ching.
You
Oh,
know you
but
have
she's sweet.
arrived when you feature as a lyric, let alone a chorus, in a Barefoot Man and Andy Martin song.
Right.
You know you have arrived and you are officially Cayman celebrity material when you end up in a Barefoot Man and Andy Martin song. So Barefoot and Andy, if you got your ears on, we'd love to hear from you. 745-2626 is the number. Spend a dime and give us a call. If not, if anybody obviously is listening in from the sister islands of
Yeah.
Cayman Brac, please give one of those boys a nudge.
Reach out to us so we can get you here in the studio, at least sing one song.
Absolutely. And I regrettably, I think that's going to be between that and the cold front, and of course our mutual appreciation for the opportunity, to work with each other again. I think that's going to have to cover it for our good news for today.
You got me on the cold front today, though.
I got you in the cool front today. Well, good. I thought I might. I just slyly threw that in there very casually under the radar.
I love that.
Yes. Got to be cool with it. I don't want anybody to
ever so subtle.
What did he ever so subtle?
Keeping
what did he say? I didn't
keeping
say a thing.
everything G or PG
That's
at
right.
the most.
Or if anything, you keep it all in the same rhythm of what you're talking. No pregnant pauses to draw attention to.
Yeah, exactly.
What did he say? I don't remember. In fact, there's
It's
somewhere.
only crazy people like me that goes over it just to make sure everybody knew it was something in there.
That is a good practice, though. Again, it shows, your professionalism as a radio host. This is not your first rodeo. We go back and listen to shows that we previously did to monitor how we sounded and how we can sound better. For me, it's always, an effort to limit the annoying ums and those little words, extra words in between what you say. I mean, there are some speakers that do it extremely. Like I remember our friend Gilbert McLean. He was always a thoughtful and purposeful speaker. You know, it may not have been at any degree of pace. You know, he may not have spoken as quickly as maybe you and I do, but it's always like he thinks about every word that he uses before he goes out there. And there are very rare ums or pauses or whatever, vocal sounds other than what he wants to say in between. And I admire that. I admire folks who do that. You're like that as well, though. I mean, I've heard you speak from the podium, not just as a politician, but more recently in your capacity. You know, I never remember the title.
Executive program manager. Nothing much hinges on it.
Executive program manager of ACT, which, by the way, I cannot blame you for being the, how should we say, the originator or the purveyor, the pusher of this one subject. Because today, I read an article that annoyed me to no end.
Okay.
And it's in relation to Cruz birthing.
Tell me.
Which I want to tell you, but I think I'm going to save it for 15 minutes as much as possible. Because it might be, you know, it might become like one of our big issues. But it's definitely.
I think you should just hit it while you're in the moment.
Should just hit it?
We can get back to it.
We can get back to it. Okay, fair enough. All right. Because I wanted to.
No, hit it. Hit it, I'm saying. And if it is going to happen, we'll get back to it again. But don't stop in the rhythm. You're in a rhythm here.
All right. I'll follow your lead, buddy, because, you know, I trust you. I trust how you think.
Go ahead. Just go for it, man.
There's little that I despise more than hypocrite. You know, take a position, defend it. I can respect that.
Right.
But don't take a position and then speak out of both sides of your mouth or try to portray yourself to be something.
Or whistle out of both ends. Yeah.
Or whistle out of both ends. Any way you want to take that.
Yeah.
You know, but I just don't like hypocrites.
Right.
All right. I don't like hypocrisy. I just don't. And I don't respect it much. So there was an article that appeared in both media houses, the Compass and CNS. And it was talking, of course, recapping the Royal Fidelity Economic Outlook. And in it, one of the founders of the CPR group, Cruz Port Referendum Cayman is what they stand for, CPR. I won't even mention his name. Said that it was illogical to ask CPR or even the resident public, you know, to vote yes for the Cruz birthing referendum because, let's see, what did he say? I want to quote this. Blah, 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 blah. One of the founders of the nonprofit Cruz Port referendum, which is campaigning for a no vote on the upcoming referendum on the development of Cruz birthing facilities in the Cayman Islands, said the government's decision to put the question to voters without giving them any idea on what those facilities would look like or how or where they would be built or how much they would cost or how they would be funded is illogical. You cannot expect logical human beings to make a decision without any information. Quote unquote was this person's statement. And again, you go back, he was on the panel with the Honorable Minister, Kenneth Bryan, and a representative from Royal Fidelity, and so on and so forth. And this is why I call those statements hypocritical. And it's not the first time I've said it on this program. You've heard me say it before. But in one of the rare occasions, I'm going to point us back to 2017 to 2021 under the then PPM-led coalition, or otherwise the unity government, which I might add was in place from 2017 to 2021. Didn't have any crossing the aisles. You know, we had our different moments, we had our challenges, but we stayed together as a government.
4 governments in
one full government. One full government.
Just checking.
But at that time, you may recall this question, this subject of Cruz birthing also reared its head.
For sure.
And it was proposed, I would dare say, as comprehensively as we have ever had a conversation on Cruz birthing.
Well done.
And led by the minister at the time and the Honorable Deputy Premier, Honorable Moses Kirkconnell. He put forward in that project not only how much the project would cost, but how the government of the day proposed to pay for it. But they also provided, again, what the CPR spokesperson called data, or data, depending on how you pronounce it, tomato, tomato, that the public needs. At that time, he provided, the government in which I was a part of, provided the financial risk or value for money.
Mm-hmm.
They provided the environmental impact and ways and suggestions to mitigate against it, such as coral relocation and coral restoration. It outlined the current visitor experience and how it might be improved under a cruise berthing environment. It made the case why Georgetown was the best location versus some of the alternative locations which were being proposed at the time. And it provided full port and cargo expansion designs and plans in visual handouts, as well as, presentations. And last but not least, it also outlined the job opportunities in which Caymanians would otherwise derive from the project. This was done in conjunction with the government and the then port building partners. I think they were called Verdant Isle,
Right.
if you'll remember. And again, we had public meetings at the town halls. There were televised meetings, and they were certainly making the rounds on the radio. And in each of these sittings, documents,
It's all over YouTube.
all over YouTube, at least one 41-page document on the overarching project, both cruise and cargo, were presented and made available to the public. But even after all of this data, the same, mind you, CPR spokesperson who spoke at the recent RF Fidelity Economic Outlook conference, complaining that this government provided no information. The previous government provided, as we said before, arguably too much information, but certainly comprehensive information that would seek to answer the question that is being put again. And this same person came back with no.
Right.
Now, again, like I said, I hate hypocrites, but I respect somebody who maintains a position. The position of CPR has been and remains to be, in my humble opinion, and proven only by their evidenced commentary in the public domain, that it's a hard no. And a hard no is not a conversation. It is a viewpoint. So to suggest somehow that, well, if we had more data, then maybe our recommendation to the public might be different. If they did tell us what they were building, where they were building, how much it would cost, then maybe we would take a different position and not call it illogical. But I put to you and the listening audience and anybody who can read with a pair of eyes that this group, this is not their approach. Their approach is simply, like Chris Johnson and the Red Spot Beach, that is not for sale at any cost. The CPR are simply not interested in this project at any cost, no matter how much data is presented or data, no matter how many times you provide the information they look for. And again, I get annoyed when this same group refuses time and time again to appear on the same platform, in the same room, in a large or live public environment to defend their position publicly at the side of groups like ACT.
Yeah, like those chamber debates. Wouldn't that be
like
nice?
those chamber debates, which we, again, readily promote because we think it's a fantastic
Awesome.
forum.
Yeah.
And you see, not only is it hypocritical, I'm going to say something that a lot of folks are not going to like, but I'm not seeking nobody's votes. I can say it.
Say it like it is.
It is a coward's approach. It is not an approach that I can respect. An approach that I can respect is take a position and defend that position. And if you are wrong in the course of our dialogue, because you and I say it all the time, and you and I don't always agree, but we can disagree without being disagreeable. But if somehow in the course of our conversation, I present points that differs from what your arguments were or your maintained belief structure system is, but you go, you know what? You did answer that question. You know what? I didn't consider it from that standpoint. Then maybe there's a possibility, to change your opinion based on relevant information. And I say all of that to use only myself as defense exhibit A. I was, once upon a time, a port cruise berthing denier. I fought against it, arguably side by side, if not first. And then people like this spokesperson picked up on the coattails and started calling. And then we found ourselves on the same team, and like minds and whatnot. But
then you grew up and got smart.
well, not even grew up and got smart. I grew up I saw beyond the fence, beyond the cloak. I had the opportunity. The greatest privilege and honor of my life was to be a representative of the people of this country. You know, I have no regrets. I look back on my 4 years with only pride in terms of what I did, but more importantly, to do that job was the greatest single honor of my life next to having my son. But at that time, you then realize that the lives, importantly, that earn a living, that derive a living from this industry, the fact that we cannot be and we can never afford to have all of our eggs in one basket. No, not being appreciative, as we are, for financial services being a key pillar in the Cayman Islands, but historically, financial services and tourism were our twin economic pillars, because we don't produce anything else in this country. We sell services at best, and that's probably one of the reasons why financial services, you know, flourishes so well. We're selling a service, and we do it better than arguably anybody in the world. But tourism is a close second. But with these folks, and again, I took that position. I felt that we can do smaller cruise ships. We can do more personalized trips. But I saw the light, frankly. And I also saw the plans that were proposed with more of an open mind. And then I went to look at places like Cayman Brac, where the only living, breathing structure that vaguely even looks like what is proposed has been in existence for the greater part of 20 or 30 years, and that's the cargo port in Cayman Brac.
And the environment's still there.
And the environment is still, it is a concrete deck slab supported by concrete and steel pillars, in which allows for water and current and sediment to move, but also creates a living, breathing habitat. Thriving habitat for fish. The structure itself over time becomes coral, and arguably would replace any small amounts of coral that would be otherwise destroyed, which is, again, what was provided last time in the risk mitigation summary. So I say all of that to say that even in the face of this data, which they now claim they are not getting from the current administration, their answer, I put to you and anybody else who's listening, is still going to be no. And a hard no is not a conversation. It is a viewpoint. It is your opinion. And that's the only way. Well, that's where we differ. But that's pretty much it.
Well, Mr. Harris, first of all, I'd like to thank you for just on your own, coming up and sharing that with us. I'm glad you got it off your chest now, because I think if you didn't, chances are, chances are something was going to happen and throw us all off. But I want to have the discussion again another day. Of course, it is something that is important to me, because it is something important because it is something important for Caymanians, and it is something important for the Cayman Islands. But I'm going to say this very briefly. I want you to understand that when someone is trying to do what they want to do, when they have their objective, and I'm speaking to everyone, regardless of where you are, when they have their own objectives, a lot of times, unfortunately, people are not going to be very transparent with you. They're going to give you their own reasons. And without me calling names, because trust me, I can call them, but that is not the point. Again, it's about the issue and being able to identify something. Just since we've been on this program, you can go on this self-sound chat, which is where, again, that same individual resides that you're talking about. I'm pretty sure I know exactly who it is. And you're going to see it there. They're objecting to, what was it, the Hyatt wants a dock? These same people, I want you to understand, they're objecting against the Hyatt having a dock. They're objecting to Ura, by Hurl is having a dock. These are the same people objecting about where the East-West Arterial is going to go. And the list goes on. And I'm going to say something very short, and I want people to understand, you have a group of people that have come here to this country, and this is where I'm saying to you, they have their own objective to fulfill. And there's a couple of different facets to this, or prongs to the fork, but just to deal with this particular one, they come to this country, and if I try to attribute something as good as I can, you want to tell you what, this is the best I can attribute. They've come from wherever they have come from, and they don't want any more development now. They just want to retire. See, it's like me, I'm in town, and I just want to go to East End right now. I just want to relax. But the difference with my mindset is I still appreciate that there's somebody else who's 18 years old and wants to build something. So the best I can do is get a little piece of land and put a tall fence so I can pretend that this is my little paradisia,
Yeah,
right?
a little piece of paradise.
This is my little piece of paradise. But these people have come to Cayman and they want no development. This is why it's against the docks, it's against the piers, it's against East-West Arterial. Basically, leave the bush alone, leave it exactly the way it is because this is what I want.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to say to you, I understand where you're coming from. I'm wishing you a little piece of paradise. You deserve a little piece, I'm sure. But you can't screw it up for everybody else in this country.
Mm-hmm.
There's Caymanians who have to eat. There's Caymanians and businesses that have to thrive. You know, but again, we will discuss it another day.
All right.
So,
well, I'm glad. And you know, we got one comment from WhatsApp. Only a fool and a dead man can't change his mind. Certainly, we've heard that comment before, but he's absolutely right. You know,
Yep.
Only a fool and a dead man can't change their mind in the face of
there
again,
is no facts in convincing these people. It is absolutely nothing because anyone looking at the facts can easily make a decision. It is common sense.
right.
Okay.
And I just want to make the point because the government is simply looking for a steer. They want to know, would you in some universe be supportive of the Cayman Islands moving in the direction of cruise tourism? Yes or no? If it is a yes, then of course the same comprehensive plans and data and financial risks and value for money, all of that you can expect will come again for, I don't know, a third or fourth time.
Yeah.
But do not go into this referendum listening to someone whose only position is no, because that, my friends, is not a conversation. This conversation, however, will continue in just a few minutes right here on 103.1 FM.
The BBC World Service, the world's radio station.
The BBC World Service makes programs with a uniquely global perspective.
Enlighten us. Where do we start?
The latest world news and current affairs.
The very best in global arts and culture.
What has been happening on the financial markets today?
Social issues, political stories.
Everything was there in a way that I never heard before.
The BBC World Service.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
Welcome to our newsroom here in central London. We place ourselves here at a little desk right in the thick of things.
OS from the BBC.
We can catch the very latest news from our colleagues, not just in this enormous room, but also from our colleagues around the world.
I'm in the room where they're treating children.
This is a combat zone.
The situation after the typhoon is very complicated.
It was a very tense situation.
OS from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
BBC News.
BBC News.
World news from the BBC. Violent clashes.
Thick black smoke.
A tremendous legal victory.
Crucial elections.
Destructive wind.
A search and recovery operation.
A race against time.
An imminent threat.
Flying a drone over a rival team's training session.
Whatever is happening, wherever it's happening, catch up with the latest news bulletins from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
For business, they say location, location, location. But really, there's no better location than right here, right now on your mobile phone or laptop. Buy and sell your pre-owned gear where the island is searching online. Buy and sell on ektrade.com. That's ektrade.com.
Across Cayman on 103.1 FM, online, and on your smart speaker. Powered by Health Services Authority. The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo 103.1.
This is the BBC News with Fiona MacDonald. President Vladimir Putin has placed major conditions on a full ceasefire in Ukraine after a lengthy telephone conversation with Donald Trump. While he agreed that Russia and Ukraine should stop attacking each other's energy infrastructure for 30 days, Mr. Putin insisted that a comprehensive truce could only work if weapons, foreign military assistance and intelligence information to Ukraine were entirely halted. Speaking in Finland, President Volodymyr Zelensky said Ukraine had always supported a truce on attacking energy infrastructure, but said Russia isn't ready to end the war. Here's BBC Monitoring's Russia editor, Vitaly Shevchenko.
The most tangible outcome of the conversation is Vladimir Putin's order to stop attacking Ukraine's energy infrastructure for 30 days. However, a comprehensive ceasefire in Ukraine that people have been talking about, that's not happening right now because for a long while it's been clear that Russia isn't exactly warm to the whole idea of an unconditional ceasefire and talks later.
The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said that renewed airstrikes on Gaza are just the beginning. In a televised address, he said Israel had resumed combat with full force, accusing Hamas of rejecting the proposals Israel had brought to ceasefire talks.
From this point on, Israel will act against Hamas with growing intensity. From this point on, the negotiations will only be done under fire. Hamas, in the past day, has felt the force of our weapons in the past day, and I want to tell you that this is just the beginning. We will continue to fight in order to achieve all of the war goals.
More than 400 people are reported to have been killed since the strikes on Gaza began on Monday night. 2 American astronauts, Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams, have in the past few minutes returned to Earth, ending a 9-month stay in space, which was originally supposed to last just 8 days. More details now from Rebecca Morrell.
Freedom, SpaceX on the Big Loop, undock sequence commanded. All hooks open.
This was the moment NASA astronauts Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams left the International Space Station. Travelling in a SpaceX capsule along with 2 other crew members, they were finally on their way home. Butch and Sonny have embraced their time on board the space station, carrying out experiments and conducting spacewalks.
The German parliament has approved changes to the constitution to allow the country to invest huge sums in the military and infrastructure. Defence spending will now be exempt from restrictions on government borrowing. The incoming Chancellor, Friedrich Merz, said the changes were necessary to strengthen Germany. World News from the BBC. Hungary's parliament has voted to ban annual Pride celebrations in the latest clampdown on LGBT rights by Viktor Orban's far-right government. The legislation approves the use of facial recognition technology to identify and fine anyone attending such events. Tamás Dombos, who works with an LGBTQ+ rights group in Hungary, says it's a tactic to distract voters from more important issues.
Very common strategy of authoritarian governments not to talk about the real issues that people are affected by, the inflation, the economy, the terrible condition of education and healthcare. Those are the issues that Hungarians care about, and the Hungarian government puts forward a topic that Hungarians are somewhat divided on, although not so much on Pride. If you look at the public opinion polls, less than 1/3 of Hungarians want to ban the Pride, and 78% of people in Budapest agree with the existence of Pride.
The authorities in Mexico City have approved the end of traditional bullfighting and the adoption of a new non-violent version. Fights where the animal is killed or wounded will be banned. The use of the traditional rejon, a sword used to slay the bull, is also strictly prohibited. The changes with only 1 vote against. Mexico City is home to the world's largest bull ring. An Italian newspaper says it's become the first in the world to offer a daily edition partly produced by artificial intelligence. 4 pages of entirely AI-generated content are included in Il Foglio's latest broadsheet and on its website. It's part of a month-long trial by the paper. 3 men have been found guilty for their part in the theft of a gold toilet from a British art exhibition nearly 6 years ago. The fully functional loo weighed 98 kilos and was insured for $6 million. It was stolen in a raid that took just 5 minutes, hours after a glamorous launch party which had taken place at Blenheim Palace. BBC News.
Views and opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Global 103.1.
And welcome back, hey man. I'm your host, Austin Harris. And I'm Ellio Solomon, and welcome back to Straight Talk 745-2626. Continuing on, Mr. Harris.
Yes, well, I just want to...
You're checking the system?
Yeah.
Checking to see if there's a... I got a text. Someone says, I hate these hypocrites, self-proclaimed environmentalists.
Yes.
They object and object endlessly just to show that they are concerned about the preservation of nature. I can see how the Department of Planning is so strict about approval of building permits. I don't think irresponsible construction and development could get away with it. I'd like to thank the listener for sending through a text. And again, yeah, I don't know. I could talk about these people forever and ever, but I just want to tell my fellow Caymanians, like my colleague says, we're not campaigning, we're not running. It's 4 years away from that. So we can just say it just like it is. Don't have to have any doubt. I am telling you that cruise tourism is good for the Cayman Islands. If we lose it, everyone is going to feel it. That is my honest opinion. I have nothing to gain out of it other than telling you the simple facts that it is. And I am seeing all these persons doing nothing else but simply objecting. And yes, we want to do everything we can reasonably to protect the environment. But at the end of the day, I think most of us have a house or want a house, and we only got it by cutting down 1 or 2 trees, and hopefully we planted 4 or 5 in return. Yeah. At least I did so. You think you got anything resolved there, Mr. Harris?
Well, I do believe so. Obviously, for the benefit of the listening audience, we had a volume issue on our streaming audio, that is which, of course, simulcast on YouTube and Instagram. And I just want to make sure that that volume is being heard at a more appropriate level. So forgive me. I was multitasking, as we like to say there. That's but I think we got it solved now. Just continuing on. Well, also at that same conference, the tourism minister and, of course, the individual pushing for cruise berthing to begin with, of course, needs no introduction, the Honorable Kenneth Bryan, said that without cruise berthing, the Cayman Islands could see a decline in business revenues, a rise in unemployment, and an increase in crime. Bryan made the remarks, to quote the media, while taking part in a panel discussion on the costs and benefits of the cruise industry, echoing the same statements he made in Parliament during the referendum debate. Now, certainly recording devices and whatnot were not allowed at the RF Economic Outlook. You couldn't videotape it or whatnot, so you had to either be there and hear it in person or hear it firsthand from someone else, or in today's case, trust the local media to report on it. But what I do have, it's about 3.5 minutes long. It is the Honorable Kenneth Bryan's comments in relation to basically the statements he just made on the subject towards or at the conference that speaks directly to the risks associated with a no vote on the referendum question, which, again, let's hear it from the proverbial horse's mouth.
There is a misconception, Mr. Speaker, that the loss of cruise tourism will only affect a small segment of our population. And simply, that is not true. The ripple effects of the decline in cruise tourism will be felt across our economy on a whole. Businesses that rely on cruise passengers, whether directly or indirectly, would suffer. These include restaurants, retail shops, and even those in the service industries who provide ancillary support. Well, let me explain, Mr. Speaker. The people who deliver the supplies to the shop that's in cruise tourism, the people who clean the stores that cater to cruise passengers, the gas stations that service the gas to the taxi drivers, the tour operators, or the boat operators, the landlords who lease or rent their units to the cruise tourism businesses, the tender operators and captains, and yes, Mr. Speaker, I said the tender operators and captains, because they too will be affected over time as fewer and fewer ships come to our shores, because there will be less need for tendering. The income generated from cruise tourism flows through our entire economy, and we must protect that flow to safeguard the future of our Caymanian workers and entrepreneurs. But don't take my word for it, Mr. Speaker. Rather, let's look at the Economics and Statistics Office and what they had to say on the matter. In their report entitled, "The Economic Impact of Cruise Tourism in the Cayman Islands," the ESO quantifies that the pre-pandemic in 2018, the cruise sector generated a total spending contribution of $350.1 million into the Cayman Islands economy. That figure that have now fallen to $261 million in 2023. That's a decline of $89 million in 6 years. Mr. Speaker, doesn't stop there. It is expected to further decline to $253.4 million in 2024, substantiating the fact that the cruise sector is slowly showing a pattern of steady decline. This revenue helps to fund our public services, to fund our police, our teachers, our fire officers, our civil servants, our road systems, our school facilities, our affordable housing programs, our scholarships for our children, our health care at HSA, our seaman benefits, our government pensions, and a host of many other programs and benefits to our people. If we allow the cruise sector to decline, the revenue that we earn will also disappear over time, Mr. Speaker. As a government, as a people, we have a responsibility to tell the people what will happen with that decline.
And there you go. Those comments coming directly from the minister at the last sitting of Parliament, which took place in December 2024. And, you know, again, for persons who say, where is the data? Where is the information? Where are the guidance notes in terms of helping me make the right call? Again, there it is. But if you choose to ignore it and say that's not real, or pay no attention to what's going on over here, but only what is coming out of my mouth, again, that is not a conversation. Not at all. So I thought those comments were good, and I want to commend the minister for doing that which the minister before him, the Honorable Moses Kirkconnell, did, again in having this discussion. And I say to folks, listen, it's okay if you don't agree with cruise berthing. I get it. I get your position. You know, what's your alternative to it? Is what I would love to hear. And I even gave him a hint. You know, if we don't go cruise berthing, we don't go bigger and better, then we're going to need an economic model for Georgetown that still fits in tourism. And one solution, one suggestion from the humble corner here is develop Georgetown to cater to mega cruise. You know, something that McKeeva Bush, if I dare remember correctly, was first to offer up in Georgetown. I saw firsthand, again, I'm not asking you, I'm telling you, Monaco is the size of an eighth of a mile from Paradise Bar and Grill to Dixie Cemetery. But every part of that street is lined with gold in terms of the mega yachting, exclusive rich yachting community. And they're coming in to dine, so they're not going to stay on board their ships. You know, not like cruise passengers. Cruise passengers aren't coming to Cayman to eat. They get, you know, served buffet style, you know, trough style on the cruise ship. But they do come to Cayman for the water sports activities, for the sights, the Stingray City, for the history, for the people, you know. But if you don't want cruise tourism, what is your alternative solution? Because there are people who will be deprived from a living if you choose not to go that route. And that is why I say, if your position maintains that of a hard no, then I encourage those who are in cruise tourism today to get the names and phone numbers of those who sit and stand at the gate of CPR with a hard no. Because when you lose the ability to feed your family, go see these folks first.
Yeah, and one of the things I think you said is very powerful there as well is the fact that, you know, you've got these secondary and tertiary spends as well. You know, the gas stations that are providing gas to the persons who are involved in the industry, the persons who are giving other supplies. And you talked about the numbers coming in from ESO. These are facts. These are persons that the taxpayer is paying to provide them with facts. I'm assuring you, ESO is not making it up. It might be short in numbers, actually. It might be a little bit short because maybe everybody's not completing the surveys. And you're always entitled to your own opinion, they say, but you're not entitled to your own facts.
Indeed.
And that's the fact, ladies and gentlemen. I want to encourage you to do the right thing. 517.
745-2626 is the number. 517 is the time in studios. I do see one WhatsApp comment that will require us reading it, but with your permission, Ellio, and that of the listening audience, I'm going to propose that we take a very short commercial break and then go to the phone lines, open up the phone lines, check in with the WhatsApp.
Here's the man.
We'll do that. So keep it locked. There'll be more Straight Talk still to come right here only on Bobo 103.1 FM.
More Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio coming up. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Bobo FM. Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio. Have your say on 745-2626. Bobo FM.
And welcome back, K-Man, to more Straight Talk here on 103.1 FM. I'm your host, Austin Harris.
And I'm Ellio Solomon.
And the phone lines are open, 745-2626. If you've got a comment that you want to share on the subject of cruise berthing, and more importantly, the referendum question that is coming up as part of the April 30th vote, we'd love to hear from you. Alternatively, of course, you can reach out to us via our WhatsApp line at 928-2562. There you can either leave us a voice note or send us a traditional WhatsApp text message. There are no callers on the line, but there is a WhatsApp text message. It says, another day, another biased CNS article, cherry-picking information to fit their anti-port narrative while conveniently ignoring facts that don't align with their agenda. Let's break this down for those who are interested. 1, there is no cost-benefit analysis on what the decline of cruise calls really mean to Cayman, as quoted from the article. Well, this is false. The data is publicly available. The 2024 BRIA study confirms cruise passengers spent over $118 million in Cayman last year alone. That is real money, supporting taxi drivers, tour operators, retailers, and restaurants. Ignoring these numbers does not make them disappear. Another comment from the article, cruise revenue accounts for a small percentage of government earnings. Again, this is a misleading comment. While cruise revenue may be a smaller percentage of overall government income, it directly benefits the private sector and keeps small businesses alive. What is the alternative? Should we tell thousands of Caymanians who depend on cruise tourism that their livelihoods don't matter? 3, the Georgetown business closures are due to revitalization and COVID, not the cruise decline. Well, this is partially true, but again, also misleading. COVID affected every sector, but that does not explain why Cayman's cruise recovery is significantly lagging behind other Caribbean nations that invested in modern infrastructure. The revitalization project may have impacted some businesses, but we cannot deny that removing thousands of daily customers has not had a massive effect. Again, it would be mad to spend $500 million on cruise piers because we'd never get a return on the investment from the article. Again, this is also a false statement. There is no $500 million project on the table. This is not a vote on a specific project, but a referendum on whether cruise berthing should be considered at all, period. The claim that this would be a massive government-funded project is mere fear-mongering at its finest. And again, I think that's a solid point to make. The government is not asking you to give your opinion on a specific project. They're asking you your opinion on the overall idea of cruise berthing and whether you think we should explore it or not. Should we move on to something else, or should we explore this issue further? That is all. 5, the offshore sector is Cayman's economic engine, contributing around 60% of government revenue. Well, that is a true statement, but an irrelevant one. Offshore finance is not a substitute for tourism. The two industries serve different segments of the economy. Losing cruise tourism does not magically transfer that revenue into financial services. It just removes a pillar of our economy and forces more Caymanians out of work. I agree with that point because I made that point. And finally, 6, Marla Dukaran and Tom Garreau will be presenting research at the CPR rally. Well, we all know what to expect. A room full of people preaching to the choir while dismissing economic realities in favor of environmental doomsday scenarios. Garreau has been repeating the same talking points for years, and Dukaran's entire stance is built on questioning cruise tourism without offering real solutions. Bottom line, CNS and CPR are not trying to inform the public. They're trying to control the narrative by undermining the referendum, ignoring economic realities, and using scare tactics. The referendum is happening. Caymanians now have a choice to vote based on facts and potential economic opportunity, or let misinformation dictate the country's future.
Pretty accurate.
I think that was solidly accurate. That just goes right to the heart of the issue, and certainly, again, we offer it up. The article is there. It's on CNS. It's been printed. It's in the public domain. We are simply offering up an alternative viewpoint, and certainly I think I want to thank that listener and the writer for breaking down the arguments put forward by the article as either being false, misleading, or frankly irrelevant. 745-2626 is the number, or you can write to us at 928-2562 on the WhatsApp number, or send us a voice note, and we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, well, I can tell you, I don't have much respect for CNS, and I enjoy saying it publicly because it's a fact. I remember when they were going to start that newspaper, or whatever it's called. You remember I used to have kpolitics.com back in the day, which of course ended up having to be shut down, arguably. We made it through Hurricane Ivan, but it was the first website that was offering all those replies, and people really utilized it. Of course, there were one or two persons who unfortunately abused it, but either way, that one of those persons came to me and said, hey, you wanted to understand the dynamics of K-Politics, because they intended to start a website similar to it.
Right.
And that's where you end up with CNS. But I really look at a news company as, amongst other things, it is an instrument that is supposed to be making an accurate record of history. Basically, anyone coming back 10, 15, 20 years, whatever it is, should be able to go into those archives and get as clear understanding that you can't write everything, completely.
Yeah.
But you should walk away with a reasonably accurate understanding of, and I really want people to take this serious. This is very, very important. If you're sitting in a workplace, quick diversion, to come back to make the point. You're working in your workplace. How many times have you done something and maybe somebody else has stole the credit for that? I'm sure you probably sat there and said, this isn't right. I was the one who did this.
Yeah.
And it's very hurtful, it's very painful. And most important, it's grossly inaccurate. And therefore, you miss your promotion and the list goes on. Well, where it is not necessarily on that specific micro level, I can assure you that it is very important that the newspaper that you're reading, just like your diet, should be one that is truthful. It should be accurate. You should be able to make decisions based on that information.
Mm-hmm.
And when someone is giving you information that is completely misleading, and I abhor having to use myself as an example, but I'm just going to use it because it's the most blatant one that comes to my mind. I was the one that brought the pension amendment that allowed Caymanians to be able to buy a piece of land, build a house, buy a house, pay off your mortgage. You can't go on CNS and find that. Unless it's somewhat in the replies.
Right.
When you can have a newspaper, for example, that will be deliberately trying to we're not giving him no credit. Whatever it is, whatever your agenda is, when you are providing misinformation either by twisting the facts or withholding information from you, the listening public, so that you cannot make a properly informed decision. I'm going to tell you that that newspaper, newsline, whatever it is garbage and should be thrown in the garbage. And no one should read it because it is not accurate. So understand, you can digest that crap every day, but I'm telling you, you're not getting accurate information, right? That's the bottom line. And go search it up for yourself. So you get up there, and when you read that article, there was an article just the other day. It was talking about CPR not getting this and CPR. So where's the other side of that? Why aren't you saying that equally ACT is not involved?
Right.
Come on, have a balance. It's different if you're even a talk show, but you're putting yourself forward as a newspaper, objective. Want people to understand, get the facts.
Right.
Nonsense, ladies and gentlemen, nonsense. And have them call this talk show. That's what I want to do. And I'm going to prep a program just for them.
Well, again, one thing for certain, we offer up our opinions, and we open ourselves up for the criticism that we follow. We have a caller gone, didn't stick around. I picked it up as soon as they showed up.
Well, change your mind.
745.
You might have heard the part about prepping for them.
They sound ready, they do.
So one of the things I wanted to chat about the other day was we had read the article coming out about national vote, which is something, again, I think that the country, it is good.
Yeah.
Even though we didn't agree with all of the points raised in that particular article.
Yeah.
Again, I think national vote is something that this country should be looking at. I think we have way too much division, and single-member constituencies doesn't help us. And one of the things I wanted to talk about was the fact that it seemed to allude that we didn't have executive powers. We didn't have an executive, that we didn't have a legislative body. And I think that we need to discuss that.
Well, I was thinking about that. And you said something, again, it was last week, saying that you were not opposed to one man, one vote, but you were opposed to single-member constituencies, and you explained saying that what we need to do is get rid of the lines. Just get rid of the lines and have one man, one vote. One person entitled to one vote in this case, of course, Georgetown, for example. But I just want to ask, the single-member constituency aspect came into the one man, one vote argument, again, on the overarching basis that we're looking to create fairness, inequality in voting power. And what I understand the national vote to mean, if we get rid of the lines, then we have a district of Georgetown, 7,000 voters, all casting one vote for all of the candidates in Georgetown, not constituents in area breaking that down. Yes? Is that what you're suggesting?
Well, again, you see somebody, for example, was making a suggestion that these lines make no difference, right? And they do. They do make a huge difference. If you go back at history and look at where a lot of this is coming from, is early days in the UK. So, for example, the UK would have had, from time you had the king in power, you had the little fiefdoms. You put a lord over there, and he was in charge of that area. He could do whatever he wanted to do. I won't get into all the details, but he pretty much did whatever he wanted to do in that area. And then he had another lord over here and another one all over the place. And basically, they pledged their loyalty to the king, and taxes and everything came. It was a way of the king controlling all of those various respective areas.
Right.
And where you had challenges is that you ended up with what was called today a multi-member constituency, because when they all came to make representation to the king, some area might have had 3 lords, and one only had 1. And so there was this argument, but now we have 3 lords making a representation, and surely this beckons the king with greater degree of, intensity. That's not fair.
Right.
And so you talked about smaller divisions, so that you basically had 1 representative coming forward to speak to the king.
Right.
Well, first of all, I think we can probably agree we don't have the king today.
No, we don't.
Okay, good. So the situation is right now is that there was the argument that the single-member constituency / one man, one vote was going to give the equality of the vote, which I completely agree with equality of votes.
Right.
Now, here's a simple question. if your board of directors has 5 people that are going to sit in your board of directors, why would you want to make it that you could only vote for one? This is just a fundamental question. Why would you only want to be able to choose one of the 5? Why would you not want a chance to have an influence over all 5 members?
Okay, so now then you're suggesting we move away from one man, one vote.
Well, no, I'm saying, first of all, we're talking about, let's just discuss equality of vote.
Right.
Because there was a concern, well, Georgetown's getting 7, Port Northside's got 1 in the list.
Yeah.
Forget about these lines for a moment. You want everyone to have an equal chance to influence the 19 members that will sit in Parliament.
But I just want to understand. So,
ahead.
again, under the single member constituency, we've broken down Georgetown, for example, into 7 constituencies of equal number of voters of between 1,200 and 1,400 people, which is, of course, gives you the equality of voting and the accountability by breaking up Georgetown in individual sections. But under your one man, one vote idea, if we remove the lines, I have a vote in Georgetown, so I will still get 1 vote, but I could spread that vote over not just Prospect or Red Bay, but Georgetown North, Georgetown Central. I can vote for anyone, but only one person.
If you wanted to have it so that you just had 1 vote, then yes, you can vote. Just as long as you get 1 vote only.
But again, I want to ask, how does that address the accountability factor? If I live, for example, in Prospect,
but we know that accountability,
and I vote for one person, and it's, okay, so I choose the candidate to give my vote to for someone who's, running or lives in Georgetown North or whatever. In this case, they'll just be a Georgetown representative. So whoever I vote for, basically, if I have a problem in Prospect, or I got a problem in Crew Road, or I got a problem, well, Crew Road is not George, well, yeah, part of it is Georgetown. It is Georgetown. But whatever aspect of the district of Georgetown, which we had under the multi-member constituency, I'd hold that one person accountable for all of it.
Yeah. But we know that accountability doesn't really work. Arguably, it doesn't always work for sure.
No,
because
that's why we moved away from it.
Period. Because you could be a representative in your area, but Austin Harris was not a minister. Austin Harris could not really do anything about that problem.
True.
He was very limited in what he could do.
True.
He could only go to the ministers and so on and beg them to do it.
But only the voter would get a chance to select me, and if more people, obviously chose me over the guy anywhere else, then all that would determine from a voter perspective is who won the election, not whether or not I would be a cabinet minister or a premier or whatever else, or just to be elected.
And again, the voters right now have no choice over that either.
Agreed.
And it becomes very difficult in order to be able to ensure that you could influence exactly who's going to be a minister.
But one man, one vote, one person, me voting for one person in all of Georgetown will have a greater effect of accomplishing that?
Well, all I'm simply saying is the important thing is that you're looking and saying what are some of the let's hope it's unintended consequences of single member constituency.
Right.
And that is that you're amplifying any minority voice, first of all, that you have in that area.
Yes.
I am saying to you that if you have 100 people in the room, and let's just say 3 of them 10 of them are just complete radicals, whatever that might be, I don't know, pedophiles.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you have 100 people in the room, those pedophiles make up 10%. If I dice the 100 up into 5 different areas, well, you're totally different now. Yeah. You could end up with one constituency where 50% of that constituency are made up of pedophiles.
Yeah. No,
which has a significant bearing now on who's going to get elected and sent to Parliament.
I guess so. Yeah. I mean, I see the argument you're trying to make, mm-hmm. but on the accountability factor, in my mind,
mm-hmm.
Whether it be one man, one vote without the lines or one man, one vote specifically with the lines, it promotes accountability and it gives, of course, equal vote regardless of the size of constituency, with the exception only of the smallest constituencies, which have traditionally always been small.
Let's define the term. Let's define accountability. How you would view accountability. Let's define it.
Well, again, I will use the example that was given when we were having these conversations. The voter was arguing at the time of multi-member constituencies that they never saw their representatives save but once every 4 years, and that would be come election time,
mm-hmm.
when they would come with their promises and their refreshments and their curry chicken and whatnot.
So,
T-shirts and whatnot.
seeing them is somehow part of the accountability. Okay, fine. That's
From
fine.
a voter's perspective,
That's one.
that's their accountability. So the proposal and the response from the politicians at the time was, do you know how difficult it is for me as an individual to go out and see 7,000 persons face to face, either individually or as a group, either on an annual basis or over the course of 4 years? And to your wider point, if I did that, then I would spend my 4 years visiting and talking with the voters versus doing the job in which they sent me there to do. So there would be a trade-off. So the proposal then were, okay, so if in the first instance, East End and North Side only get 1 vote per voter, but Georgetown gets 7, Buddentown gets 4, West Bay gets 4 per voter, to create equality, we give everybody 1 vote, and to create accountability, we break up those areas, those districts, particularly the larger districts, Georgetown, Buddentown, and West Bay, into constituencies where you have smaller number of voters. So now a representative doesn't have the excuse, well, I have 7,000 voters that I need to see every 4 years. Well, now you have 1,200 or 1,500 under the proposed new boundaries, which the governor of the day rejected. But that clearly reduces the excuses from the politicians and increases both the accountability and the equality factor.
Well, I can tell you right now, you have 19 constituencies. And just for clarity, this was not specifically what I wanted to talk about, but I'm happy to talk about it. You have 19 constituencies right now. And I'll bet you if you ask voters, they'll probably tell you the exact same thing they told you when we only had 6.
Right.
I didn't see my politicians. They're like February 29th. I only see them once every 4 years.
Right.
Nothing has changed.
Okay, well, I'll give you that. The intention was to break it down to a way that it was logical to do away with the excuses, but the point that you're making is the status quo hasn't changed no matter how small you make it,
and arguably
or how much hand-holding you do.
And arguably it's not going to change. And
I will just add to that, just one thing. The other thing, single-member constituent, and this is the problem that I see, to your point, only a small number of people, in other words, persons getting elected to office with as much as just 300 votes. So can't even say they have a national mandate. They got elected by 300 votes. The constituency level, when you break it down to smaller moving parts, puts a greater degree of responsibility on the voter to show up. Now, I use Prospect as an example. The incumbent, Sabrina Turner, won the district or the constituency of Prospect, not by any wide margin, but by 46 votes. 46 votes was the margin. But a third of the voters chose to stay home, didn't participate. And when you have a smaller voting base, because you said, voter, you didn't see your politician enough, and B, you thought, well, you know, we shouldn't have more influence than East End or North Side or Cameron Brack or Little Cayman. The only requirement that those changes put on you is that you have to show up, but once every 4 years, to exercise your democratic vote. Because if you don't exercise, then we don't have 600, 700, 800 people deciding on who should go to office, but 300, 200, maybe and less, because the voter failed to meet their end of the agreement when you made these changes. And I just simply say that is the challenge we need to fight against.
Well, you complain that you can't see your elected representative for 4 years, so therefore you don't show up the one time in 4 years that you should.
Really?
Yeah. So again, this is
an argument at cross purposes, I think.
This is what I'm saying, Austin. So again, just like my discussion about the media houses and the important role that they have to play, because the members of the public are busy. We're going to give them that. They're busy working, trying to feed themselves, their family. They don't have time to do a lot of different things. They don't have time to digest all of this technical information. And so they should be able to rely on specific instruments that impart that information to them. So that when that person comes and says, we've done the facts and figures on this, and yes, we should move the rock, that they can have a level of confidence in that particular institution. And again, this is where I say there's a challenge there, because you have institutions, unfortunately, you can't necessarily rely upon. But if I get specific now on the voting in these particular areas, when we looked at the old system, when we made our constitutional changes, what should have triggered those? It should have triggered those based on the things that people were complaining about. People complained that there was too much division in the parliament. That's what I remember, being very much politically involved. It was too much division. Why is the government opposition always fighting? Why can't they get along and actually do something that's good for the country? This is what I heard. So,
but the Westminster system is by nature.
But that's fine. So let's just draw the brakes on. And tell me now, we're going to bring a new system. The new system then that's being proposed should be obvious to everyone, as an example, how it fixes that particular problem. If it is not obvious to you how it's going to fix the problem that the opposition and government is going to work together, then I'm going to tell you that chances are the proposed system is not the right one.
Right.
Okay? Now, there's another argument about I can't see my representative. I had this discussion in debate at Hartwell Theatre, and one young lady was adamant against me on the position that I took. And by the way, I thank her because after I was out of Parliament, she came and said, you know, I made the wrong decision. I fought against you, but I fought against you because you were with Mr. Bush. And I didn't look at what you were doing.
Right.
I was too focused on Mr. Bush.
Yeah.
But either way, a question we need to ask ourselves as voters, because that part of this political reform needs to be about ourselves too, not just politicians.
Agreed.
I'm going to ask you the question, why do you need to see Austin? Why does Austin have to show up at the bar? Why does he have to show up at your house? So you can feel good? So we need to ask ourselves questions too. Why are you demanding that you have, I haven't seen him. Seen him for what? Did you see him in the papers? It should be that he's doing something.
Right.
It should be that when I read that, boy, he did something against me, look at he fighting now, try to get one park down on you.
Yeah.
He shouldn't have to be showing up at your door.
Yes.
And we just need to ask ourselves honest questions. So if accountability is seen the politician, I think you should remove it, because I don't think the politician should be up in your dorm out. The politician should be working his butt off and being able to show you some good results. And if he is opposition and not the government, he can't necessarily do it. Say, as I say, he can't have his way, but he can have his say.
Yeah.
And he should be on record now where he has been pounding and championing that this needs to happen.
Yeah.
He should be that voice for you.
Yes.
And the newspaper should accurately reflect it. So therefore the public can say, we can back you again.
Right.
And we can push until you get up in this government.
But in terms of educating the public, I think you make an excellent point. I give you the point that you make.
Okay.
But if we go back to the standpoint, you know, from the voter that says, why is the government and opposition always arguing?
Yeah.
Why can't you get them to get along? On the very basis of what you've just stated. For anyone who's not a member of the government, again, you're in the government, you're setting policy, there's a greater likelihood that your ideas will get passed because obviously if it's supported within your overall government structure, you have the majority numbers and majority wins. But if you're in the opposition, to your point exactly, you don't have control over what policy is set, whose agenda is moved forward or not. But all you can do is go on record as to fight for the things that you think you want or should be getting. And therefore, when the public see this poetry played out in real life, this dance, if you will, political dance, it would come across as, why the government and the opposition always at odds? Well, the government has its agenda. The opposition has its own agenda, which includes things that the government either has ignored or will not willingly accept, and therefore that may come across as divisive, but nonetheless, from the uninformed voter or public's point of view, all they hear is two sides arguing.
Well, I can say this to you. There's merit in what you're saying, but I believe that the overwhelming reason why the public said that and have merit to say it is because typically what you find with opposition versus government is that they oppose just to oppose. And let me give you a perfect example. Let's use the cruise pairs.
Yeah.
Your government was bringing the cruise pairs. Understand that the opposition at the time sided with CPR.
Yes.
To go out and campaign against the government on those ports.
That's correct.
And anyone being a good representative would have said, it's the government idea, but it's a damn good idea. I have to support it.
Yeah.
You can say, I think you should go a little further. Should be 2 pairs instead of 1. 3 pairs instead of 2. All those things is fine. Tweaking, fine tuning, qualifying things. But simply opposing anything a government brings simply because you're the opposition and you want their seat is damaging for the country, damaging for the Caymanians. And this is, to me, what the public is concerned about. Right. And that, to me, I think comes amongst other things with a set of instruments out there that holds people accountable, like newspapers that are honest, right? Saying that Mr. So-and-so, let me remind you what he did 16 months ago, and the list goes on. Those things help keep people accountable. In addition to that, the elected official himself that you elect should have a level of maturity that they're going to say, I am not going to stand here and fight against anything that this government is doing to be able to help my people.
Right. Well, listen, I hear all of that, but I would just simply put to you that if that is the kind of environment that we want to move away from, again, I don't know what system of governance would provide that ideal platform. The Westminster model for democracy, as has been said before, is by nature acrimonious. It puts the government at odds against the opposition.
Well, I'll tell you part.
But hang on.
Yeah.
Puts them immediately at odds. I think, and again, from experiencing this firsthand, there is value to an honorable opposition, not to disagree just to disagree for disagreement's sake, because we have seen instances in Parliament where the opposition does not object, takes a position that it agrees with government. And I give you one obvious example during COVID. In COVID, we were all in the same boat together. And the opposition at that time, probably one of the most vociferous oppositions we've had in a long time since the days of Haig Bodden and Jim Bodden and others, said, you know what, we're not going to fight against the government on these issues and these recommendations because we are trusting them to believe that they're doing the best they can. There is no instruction manual for a global pandemic. It's coming to them, it's happening to them for the first time, just like it's happening to all of us. So we will not oppose for opposition's sake. And that's the Westminster system. But I also believe in a properly run parliament, just like it is in a talk show right now.
Sure.
Two people, intelligent people, I might add, taking on a subject, but perhaps taking on different viewpoints of that subject, not necessarily rolling over and saying, tickle my tummy, I agree with you, and let me do you next, but in fact, challenging each other a little bit on some of the finer moving points. And that makes the arguments, arguably, put forward by both sides that more credible and believable, and then leaving it up to 100%. The ultimate arbitrator, the voter, or the public, or in our case, the listening audience, to say, okay, which one of these 2 points of view can I support as being real or authentic?
Absolutely.
And I think that should be the goal. But in terms of getting a system, I just want to make the point of a system. You know, what would be the system that would provide this paradise, or this improvement to what is the status quo? I mean, I look at the constitutional democracy, which is the United States, and even in the United States, you have a government opposition party in the place of the two dominant parties, Republicans and Democrats. And their views at times are completely diametrically opposed, regardless of what the subject is. But there are also times where they come together. So one could say that the same argument applies in a constitutional democracy as does exist in a Westminster democracy. So again, the question is, they too have the same problem. Their voters undoubtedly feeling the same question. Why can't they just get along? What do we replace it with? I don't know.
Okay, so again, yeah, I think good points. And so when we look to the United States, again, that is another perfect example. People will look to the United States, and when we do that, it's almost as if we're saying that they have it right.
Right.
And I don't agree that they have it right.
Completely agree.
That doesn't, just because they're United States doesn't mean they have it right.
No.
I mean, for example, then let's just go ahead and implement income tax, property tax, and the list goes on.
Yeah.
So same thing in terms of the political reform. The political reform doesn't necessarily, in my humble opinion, mean that every change that you're trying to make in order to create a better system has to be something that has to be specific to Parliament. I just talked about the media. What is there in terms of proper regulation of the media? What holds them accountable to tell you the truth? What holds them accountable to get up and say, when a person who, let's say a person who really watches Parliament can sit and say, but I just heard something wonderful that was said in Parliament, but it was nowhere in the news. You need the same transparency that you and I have right here, because we are going back and forth. But you know what's the difference? We're not arguing against each other just to try to get one-upmanship. We're not arguing just to try to win. Because if you are, the public can hear, he don't have a point. He's just trying to win.
Yep.
Right?
Indeed.
And if people can see that back and forth, they're not saying that this is just acrimonious. These two guys need to come out of office. No, they see that they're both trying to work together for what they believe is best for the country. And yes, there might be little areas that they're hitching on, but the goal, the overarching objective is that I'm trying to get something for you.
Yes.
And we're just disagreeing on a couple of specifics here. Give us a couple of moments to work it out.
Yes.
But I'm going to tell you that part of that system has to be accountability, including the media. They shouldn't be allowed to blatantly lie, slope and slant, and go unaccounted for. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
We don't actually have a caller.
Oh, you don't have a caller.
We're going to take a short commercial break. But when we come back, we want to talk about that code of ethics, code of standards. Has it ever been proposed, or what do we have as an alternative? I think it's a great conversation, and we want to invite you to be a part of it by calling in 745-2626 or sharing your viewpoints on our WhatsApp number, 928-2562, where you can either send us a voice note or a traditional WhatsApp text message. But we're going to pause, take a short commercial break. We'll be right back with more Straight Talk on 103.1 FM.
More Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio coming up. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Mobile FM.
Hey man, could it be you? Tortuga's 10K giveaway is back, and someone's walking away with $10,000 in cash. Every time you spend $25 at Tortuga Fine Wine and Spirits or discount liquors, in-store or online at tortuga.ky, you get a shot at winning big. As well as $10,000 in cash, we've got thousands in giveaways to hand out every week. Think staycations, the latest iPhones, exclusive experiences, and more. Get in to win. Visit tortuga.ky for the full terms and conditions.
Welcome back to Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio. Have your say on 745-2626. Mobile FM.
And welcome back, man, to more Straight Talk here on 103.1 FM. The phone lines are open, 745-2626 or 928-2562, giving us just over 5 minutes before we have to pause again and check in with the BBC News. You know, I just wanted to pick up on the point that you made, and I think is a valid point to make. You know, how do we ensure accountability, dependability, and some form of respectability from journalists, from the media? I remember, again, we've come this way before, you and I, and I think it may have happened when you were in office, actually, not on the radio. But there was a discussion going around for a while, I remember it, where they were thinking about holding the media accountable. You know, prescribing a code of conduct for the media. And it was probably put in place for people like me because at the time, I think I was getting sued every week, or at least threatened to be sued every week. I've learned since then. But to the point that there was a pervasive thought, to your point, how do we protect against the slants or the personal narratives that will be either intentionally or unintentionally leaking into the narratives that are put out by one media house to the next? How is one more transparent or less transparent than the next? How is one more accountable, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Make a long story short, those proposals never even, they didn't make it to the table. I think they started in somebody's, closet, but they never actually made it to the formal table. Again, with media houses, just, again, human nature. Nobody, agreeing to one accepted standard, or perhaps, I don't know what happened, but I know there was no dialogue on the point, and there was no politician, no leader pushing for that accountability also, which I think is also, again, how, dependent we are on our elected leaders to lead, which after all, that's what you put them in office for. I will digress on this point only a little bit, but that is to say that, and these aren't my views, but I agree with it, you can't run a country by referendum. You can't take every single question to the people and ask them to tell me what you think and give me guidance, because if we did that, then what do I need you? Why do I need 19 of you?
Right.
If we're going to run a country by referendum, reduce the size of the parliament to 7, just cabinet ministers who are all making policy, save yourself hundreds of millions of dollars, but take everything, as they say, to the Lord in prayer, but take everything to the voters in prayer. You can't run a country that way. However, on the broad issues, like the ones that this government is seeking to answer now, they're asking for broad issues that have been festering for a long time, we have got no progress on. Tell us what you think, one way or the other, so we can either move on, or we can, improve on.
Right.
So
cut it or gut it.
Cut it or gut it. Exactly. That's another good way of putting it.
Yeah, but
one or two other phrases which you can't.
That's
not necessarily appropriate.
That was the best I could come up with to keep it.
But I give you credit, though. I know the thought.
You know that was in my mind, right?
It had crossed, and he says, "Nope, that does not cut past the smell test."
Yeah,
I can't say that.
It was something like special high intensive training or get off the pot.
Yeah, something along those lines.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. But so again, Austin, basically on that particular thing, I mean, I want to touch really quickly on this executive issue, but bottom line is I think that we can sit down, and I don't think it has happened, and that's where I have a problem with a lot of what was implemented, is that we sit down as a country and we identify the things that we have problems with, the things that we want to achieve, and you make a plan based on that. You put a system in there, and not necessarily trying to get a cookie-cutter system from somewhere else. That doesn't mean that you can't use something as a guide, but you can make the necessary modifications as required. So one of the things that was mentioned is that we didn't, and you let me know if I'm wrong on this, Austin, because you read the article, but it was suggesting almost as if we didn't have a legislative and we didn't have an executive. Why are you smiling?
We're being challenged.
They're being challenged?
By an individual, one of our commentators, someone that this person and I have chatted before. This is in the hard no category. But
is this on a cruise?
Yeah.
Oh, we're not going back.
We're not going back there.
Not today. Not today.
We're done today?
Yeah. We get cruise another day.
All right.
So I just wanted to give.
Sorry, buddy. My co-host has has as much say in this whole conversation as I do.
I know, but
challenge goes on.
As much as I want to talk cruise, I don't think everybody want to talk about cruise every day. All right. Although I will keep hammering.
I would have accepted the challenge, but that's all right. We leave them alone.
No,
20 seconds left, partner.
Don't make me change my version.
No, I'm not making change the course. But maybe during the break, I'll present you a challenge and let you.
When we come back from the break, then we can discuss the executive.
All right, fair enough. Well, it is. What the time is it? 58 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock. Keep it locked. There'll be more Straight Talk still to come following the BBC News right here on 103.1 FM.
BBC News. BBC News. World news from the BBC. Violent clashes. Thick black smoke.
A tremendous legal victory.
Crucial elections.
Destructive wind.
A search and recovery operation.
A race against time.
An imminent threat. Flying a drone over a rival team's training session.
Whatever is happening, wherever it's happening, catch up with the latest news bulletins from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM. Bobo FM. We're making Bobo FM bigger and better. We got a brand new frequency with even more power. Retune your FM radio to 103.1 now. This is Bobo FM, the home of the BBC World Service, the most trusted news source in the world. Now in our new home of 103.1 FM. This is Bobo 103.1.
The BBC's From Our Own Correspondent.
In today's Russia, no one is allowed anywhere near the political stage if they pose a serious challenge to Vladimir Putin.
Stories and reflections from our reporters around the world.
There is a major sense of insecurity here.
More people are coming in from Sudan every day.
From Our Own Correspondent from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM. When it comes to cooking for my family, I turn to Kirk Market for all our nutritional needs. Whether whipping up a quick stir fry with lean CAB choice beef or preparing a healthy weekend dinner with fresh local snapper, Kirk Market always has exactly what I need. At Kirk Market, I find premium proteins that keep my family healthy, energetic, and always coming back for seconds. Visit Kirk Market today. Bring home the quality and freshness your family deserves. Kirk Market. Eat well, live well, and experience a world of choice.
Hello, this is the BBC News with Fiona MacDonald. President Volodymyr Zelensky says Ukrainian infrastructure has been hit in a large-scale Russian drone attack, hours after Vladimir Putin told Donald Trump that Moscow would halt attacks against Ukrainian energy targets. Earlier, in a telephone call with Mr. Trump, the Russian president said a full ceasefire would only work if Ukraine's allies stopped giving Kiev military assistance. From Kiev, James Landale reports.
Donald Trump wants an unconditional, immediate ceasefire across Ukraine. But after his telephone call with Vladimir Putin, the US president was offered merely a partial ceasefire with conditions attached. The Kremlin said Russia's president would also begin talks about a broader ceasefire if it eliminated the root causes of the war. In response, President Zelensky said he would support any end to Russian attacks on his country's infrastructure, but he noted the irony that the promise was made as air raid sirens rang out across Ukraine.
The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said that renewed airstrikes on Gaza are just the beginning. He accused Hamas of rejecting the proposals Israel had brought to ceasefire talks. More than 400 people are reported to have been killed since the strikes began on Monday night. Mike Thompson reports.
Despite widespread international criticism, Israel's Prime Minister was making no apologies for resuming military action against Hamas. Benjamin Netanyahu vowed to use full force in the battle to defeat the group and ensure the release of hostages. Past hostage releases, he said, prove that military pressure brings results. Families of some of the hostages argue that such a policy means sacrificing the lives of their loved ones. But an undeterred Mr. Netanyahu insisted that from now on, negotiations with Hamas will only be done under fire.
2 NASA astronauts have just returned to Earth, ending a 9-month stay in space, which was originally supposed to last just 8 days. The SpaceX capsule carrying Butch Wilmore, Sonny Williams and 2 other astronauts splashed down off the coast of Florida. This is how it sounded in mission control.
And splashdown. Crew 9 back on Earth.
And SpaceX Freedom, splashdown. Good main release.
Copy, splashdown. We see main chutes cut. Nick, Alex, Butch, Sonny, on behalf of SpaceX, welcome home.
A federal judge has ordered an immediate stop to the shutdown of the main U.S. aid agency by Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency. The judge said it was likely that the attempt to close USAID violated the U.S. Constitution. You're listening to the latest world news from the BBC. The Chief Justice of the United States has issued a rare public rebuke after Donald Trump called for the impeachment of a federal judge. James Boasberg ordered the suspension of several deportation flights. From Washington, here's Gary O'Donoghue.
In a social media post, Donald Trump called Judge Boasberg a radical left lunatic, a troublemaker and an agitator, adding that he should be impeached, in other words, removed from office. While not addressing the president directly, the statement from the Chief Justice, John Roberts, represents an unequivocal admonishment of the president's words. America's political system is based on 3 branches of government: the executive, Congress and the judiciary. And this separation of powers is designed to create a system of checks and balances so that no one branch can dominate the others.
The President of the Democratic Republic of Congo, Félix Tshisekedi, and his Rwandan counterpart Paul Kagame have called for a ceasefire in eastern Congo after having direct talks in Qatar. A joint statement said it should be immediate and unconditional. It's unclear whether that would stop the M23, which now controls more territory in DRC than ever. Hungary's parliament has voted to ban annual Pride celebrations across the country in the latest clampdown on LGBT rights by Viktor Orban's far-right government. The legislation approves the use of facial recognition technology to identify and fine anyone attending such events. The US government has said there's no evidence Britain's Prince Harry received special treatment when he applied for an American visa in 2020. Immigration officials produced documents related to his application, but they heavily redacted large portions, saying they had a duty to protect his privacy. A conservative think tank, the Heritage Foundation, had argued that the public had a right to know if the British royal had disclosed a history of drug use. BBC News.
The views and opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Global 103.1.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Straight Talk with your host, Austin Harris, and myself, Ellio Solomon. Just a few minutes remaining, just about 24 to be exact. The number to call here in the studio is 745-2626. Or, of course, if you want to get us on WhatsApp, Austin, what is that number?
928-2562. That's 928-2562. And from there, you can either send us a voice note or a text message. Either way, we will share your views and comments live on the air.
Yeah. And I know, again, as my colleague did mention before we go to break, there's apparently someone trying to drag us back on that conversation about the cruise tourism.
We're touching it. We're over it. We moved on.
We'll touch it again another day.
Yeah, we'll go back to that territory some other time.
Flog that horse a little bit later on. So we're talking about the executive. And again, I wanted to touch a little bit on the executive powers that we have in the country. Just a little bit so that as part of the educate, enlighten, and elevate process.
Sure.
So when we now elect 19 members of parliament, out of that group of persons, some majority is going to form the government.
Yes.
So, again, you really, at this point in time, don't have a way of dealing it. And that's why you'll have some of these arguments of, oh, yeah, but, I need to do this. Basically, the simplistic view is you are supposed to vote for the best man or woman in your constituency and send them there and let God sort them out.
Yep.
Bottom line is some group will come together. So out of 19, typically you might get at least 10 members on one side, 9 on the other, and therefore the 10 is forming the government.
You hope. I think that would be the cleanest outcome if obviously one of the, in this case, 4 different groupings. We got 3 parties and independents. So come May 1st, the day after Election Day, you hope one of those 4 groups have superior numbers where they command the majority, or if not almost the majority, that they can form the government. But
doesn't always happen that way.
Doesn't always happen that way. If the votes are split genuinely down the middle, and I believe no one party is going to win the next election. I could be wrong. I believe it's going to be another coalition government. But I think certainly one of the 4 groupings will get elected with superior numbers, making the pathway to the horse trading easier.
A little bit easier.
But I just offer this caveat. And for the same reasons that we're arguing about here today, we could get a split election result where no side has superior numbers, and now they're going to begin the horse trading. And whilst we are here today encouraging both the voter and the politician to be adult enough, to be adult in the carrying out of the national duties, and the voter for accepting wholeheartedly the privilege of voting in a free and fair democratic election. So the least I can do is turn up. We're asking both sides to be responsible. We're going to see how people are still people, even amongst those that we would otherwise elect to pass the finish line, and saying, these are the ones we can lead. If there is no majority, we will watch grown men and women act like children because everybody going to want to be in charge, and there can only be one premier. So, and again, that takes us back to voting, whether, if we take the national vote approach for the premier, maybe that might be some way of balancing this. But if there are no superior numbers, we're going to have a fantastic demonstration of my way or the highway vote
I consider
in the election results. And I do not want that day to come. I really don't.
The horse trading will only get more and more expensive, it seems.
The only people that will hurt in that scenario would be the people of the country.
So I want to just keep focusing on this educational process as we spread it all out, because, and I'm picking up on this because I saw a particular post on Facebook where one of the individuals, again, Mr. Douglas, was stating, and I can call his name because it's public, that, a lot more clarity needs to be given. So I'm gonna move past those specifics and just jump to the fact that at least 10 persons have formed the government. Okay, and I want to say that 10 now technically becomes the executive.
Yep.
That is the executive branch of government. Now, that executive gets kind of torn slightly in two, in the sense that you have what we call front bench and back bench. So out of the 10, 7 of those persons will become ministers, inclusive of the premier. That's the 7. And then you will have the other 3 that will be your back bench. So the ministers are the front bench, and then the 3 becomes the back bench out of the 10 that are elected. The 9 who did not form the government for one reason or another, and it doesn't matter whether they are together or not, those 9 who are not in the government becomes the opposition. So the government or the parliament is technically torn up into 3 different pieces. But your executive is that group of 10 consisting of back bench and the front bench. And the front bench goes off, or the 10 of them form and meet in caucus, which where they sit and discuss decisions collectively. And then that 7 would now go to cabinet to sit and to make the actual firm executive decisions.
Yeah, right policy.
And hopefully that means that they're doing it in conjunction with their backbench 3, and they should, because if they don't, then eventually they will lose that 3, and they'll cross the aisle, and then the government would change. Absolutely. So your executive is the 10, consisting of backbench and front bench. The front bench goes to cabinet. The 10 of them meet in caucus. And that front bench are making pretty much every single decision that has to be made for this country.
Yes.
Right? Now, some of those things require that they have to go to parliament to do it, to formalize it.
Yes.
And if they need to go to parliament to formalize it, that's especially when they're going to need those 3 backbenchers to join with them as 10, knowing that they're going to go to parliament, raise the issue, and the 10 of them will vote for it, and it will carry. It will be successful.
Yeah, and again, just the circumstances under which you would need to go to parliament if you want to either introduce a new law, amend an old law, or whatever project you're proposing passes a certain threshold in spending, and you want to spend the public money.
Yeah, like finance committee.
You have to get permission from parliament. You can't make that decision exclusively as a government.
Right. And so just like how you have this executive that's sitting there, that executive could be viewed as nothing different than a board of directors for a company. And that's why I keep using that analogy. And government in turns ends up running just like that. So you'll have the main board, which is your cabinet, and cabinet goes ahead along with their caucus, and they assign boards over respective areas. So there's going to be a board for the Turtle Center. There's going to be a board for civil aviation. And all of these boards are in turn running the various government departments or government companies, etc. And this is how, in part, how the executive continues to run and be able to implement the things that it wants done within the government.
Well, it does because those boards are made up of public citizens, private citizens.
Yeah.
Presumably private citizens that the government of the day handpicks, mind you.
Yeah.
But there have been, occasions where persons that were handpicked by the government
go a little rogue on them.
Well, they take a position contrary to the government's policy decision, and then there are issues. But certainly, to your point, the politician or the one elected the voter has a degree of control over him. But whereas a private citizen, they're free to.
And normally those various boards will, they serve at the leisure of the government.
Yes.
So the government has that ability to say, we're going to remove this particular member because he's not cooperating.
That's right.
Not playing ball.
That's right.
And again, this is where we discuss things like the National Conservation Committee, which is saying that, I get to serve for life and that nobody should remove me.
No, absolutely. And they serve at the pleasure of the government, and it is traditional that, once a 4-year term is over, the members of those boards that were appointed under that administration resign, or at least they tender their resignation letter, giving the option for the next administration to either choose to accept it or not.
Yeah,
certainly the chairman and deputy chairman step down.
They sort of sit, wait, and once the new government comes in, the government may keep them there, or they may choose to remove them.
Right. And again, to the same point that you made, that the government have created instruments under which their policies can be carried out.
Yeah.
And of course, they're going to first choose the people they think agree with these policies in order to carry them out.
And again, just for clarity, it makes sense that your executive will do that. Once you have voted that good person in. So when you go to the polls and you vote for that particular person in your area, you should be choosing them not based on the color of their clothes, but you should be choosing them because you feel that this person possesses the character and the characteristics to be able to be a good representative.
Yes.
And if you think about it, if everybody's doing that, you can kind of let it go from there, because after all, good people of good character, good characteristics, you can kind of turn your back on them. They're going to go and do the right thing. Am I not right?
No, absolutely.
So they're going to go inform the government. And once the persons or that group is in government, you do want to give them, to a certain extent, what we call parliamentary supremacy. You want to give them the power to go ahead and to do the things that they have promised to do over that 4-year period of time. And so when you talk about them assigning certain specific board members, and people will use, they're just putting their cronies in place, and that all sounds good, you know, like, that sounds so bad, you're putting your cronies in. Well, technically, yeah, that's what the government needs to do. It needs to put the people in there, hopefully good people again, but people that are supporting their position, supporting where they want to go. Why would anyone want to be assigning persons to a board where you're trying to carry the boat northwest and they want to carry it to the south?
It'd be chaos.
It'd be chaotic.
Yeah.
Absolutely makes no sense.
We'd go nowhere.
Your civil service,
we did last 4 years.
Yeah,
but nowhere.
We ain't going nowhere.
Nowhere.
Your civil, you sound like a Trump now. You know.
Nobody can point me in one direction of what they did. Yeah. I hear they did plenty of stuff, but I can't see they did plenty of stuff.
I mentioned the other day about, you know, your civil servants flagging this particular thing in relation to the CUC. So again, I'll highlight that to say that, you know, your civil servants are there to serve whoever it is that forms that executive.
Yes.
Okay? They must do so in a neutral position.
Yes.
So this is why the civil service is told to not do certain things in relation to campaign and wearing colors and doing anything that even lends the impression that they're on one side or another. Now, unfortunately, there have been too many circumstances that has existed that shows that is not necessarily the case.
But in large majority.
And hopefully that is dealt with, and full confidence in our friend, Mr. Manderson.
So service are some fantastic human beings.
Absolutely.
As well.
So bottom line is that group is supposed to be neutral. And let's be clear, they could be serving one government today that wants to carry the boat north, and another government comes in and wants to carry it south. Their job is not to argue you're going the wrong way. They can argue with the minister and say, can I make some suggestions on how best to go south?
Yes.
And then the minister can decide whether he or she agrees on those particular directions. Yeah. But you can't tell the minister that we're not going south. If he asks for your opinion, our civil servants we're talking about, if he asks for your opinion, if he was so undecided, do you think I should go north or south? Well, then, of course, you know, the civil servant may very well say, well, the previous government was going north and it seemed to have been going fine. Maybe you might be inclined to do the same. But
an example simply is this, you say to the captain as a first mate, Cap, I know you want to go south, but we can't go south in a straight line because there's a reef 200 yards from us. We're going to have to turn to the southwest and then work our way back on course. So we have to adjust our sails as we go. And that back and forth does exist as well.
Right. We take the recommendations that allow us to be able to get there, and they can offer up those suggestions. And a good minister should be listening to that and allowing the civil servants to be able to offer that guidance if and where necessary.
One writer says to WhatsApp, well, why do we need an opposition at all? Why not have 19 ministers? No backbench, no opposition. To which I will simply say, without the opposition, then we remove the checks and balances that are necessary in any well-run organization.
Yeah. Well, just to offer up some clarity on that, when my colleague talks about the checks and balances. So you get, for example, one of those things is that the opposition. So there's a saying in government / opposition, or in parliament, there's a saying that the government gets its way and the opposition has its say. Mm-hmm. So opposition will ask questions. So a lot of times members of the public might come to them, or might even be something leaked from the civil service. Mm-hmm. And, you know, something's going wrong. Mm-hmm. And they might come even just through questioning time. Mm-hmm. They're allowed to put those tough questions to the government to help to expose, offer up a little bit of transparency as to exactly what's really going on. Yes. And no check. No, any government that is not put in check, they say power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Mm-hmm. So you don't want to have it where you have complete power. Some little bit of check. If it's even somebody whispering in your ear at night, somebody needs to try to keep you in check.
Yeah, a little voice of reason.
Some little thing hopefully there would be there to keep you in check. But the system itself, I just wanted to chat. So today we'll talk about, that's our discussion for today, at least on mine. My point is the executive, and then I think that we can go from there and discuss a little bit more about the legislative side tomorrow or another day when it makes itself available.
Absolutely. And then, of course, there's always the third option, then judiciary, which is another important part.
Another important check.
Of our entire governance model.
And one way that you get to see that really good, by the way, on the judiciary side, you see it in other areas as well, but the judiciary has one of its responsibilities is when there's that vagary, if you like, when something in the law isn't really clear.
Yes.
Even the judiciary will say, well, we need to research the Hansards and see really what was the spirit and intentions of the parliamentarians when they brought this law.
Yes.
But one area I think where it becomes very clear is that constitutional issues. So if the government even brings a piece of legislation that is arguably against the constitutional process, against the Constitution, then the courts will say that this is unconstitutional. You can't do this.
Can't do it.
Right.
Yeah. Similar to you folks who are, bigly Donald Trump fans, his first 100 days in office and his executive orders. Some of those orders.
Are you picking on me again?
No, not you.
Okay.
I'm just saying as an example. Because we don't have, normally politicians in command that act outside the scope of, what their, powers are. It has happened, but not as often. But in present-day circumstances, certainly Donald Trump, who was just recently elected and is in his first 100 days, and again signed over 100 executive orders, in many cases, some of those executive orders were, in fact, unconstitutional. Not because the president said it, makes it so. Some things, as has been argued, he is a president, not a king. He does not have final say. And again, just in this example of the checks and balances. We do have one audio note on WhatsApp, and at 23 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock, let's hear it.
19 ministers, no opposition, no backbenchers, and no premier. All 19 members working together for the country. All 19 of them say, or should be, working for the better of the country. They got different views, so they bring those views to the people in district councils or through a referendum and let the people direct them and tell them which way to go. Participatory democracy. A lot of people don't like that, and a lot of politicians don't like that because it gives them the power to the people. But that's the real way to run a country. I disagree with other guys. They're saying you can't run a country by referendum. Okay, not referendum, but even district councils that you abide to. That you gotta listen to these people, because if we leave the politicians by themselves, you know what's gonna happen? It's gonna be corruption. Lobbyists gonna come in, and it's gonna be corruption. And because we've already proven it, this is what God has prepared we are to this day. They do not make the right decisions when they have to get the decisions because everybody wants something to put in the pocket, and the lobbyists buy them out. Special interest groups buys them out. So if the special interest group get to the people in the district councils or through the referendum, then so be it. So we vote in a referendum, and the people, how they say, and the politicians, all 19 of them, none of one higher than the next one, and none of premier or anything. All of them just listen to what the people got to say. That's the right way to run a democracy. I don't know what people complicate their mind about. It's the right way to run a country.
Thank you, caller, for those comments and that feedback. You want to respond to it first?
Well, I would just say very quickly that I didn't necessarily say what you said in that you shouldn't run the country a referendum, but that said, I do agree with you.
Yeah.
I think you understand that when we talk about district councils, you're really just going to create another layer of politics. I'm not necessarily saying that district councils are anything bad, but what you're going to end up with district councils at the same time, you'll get a lot of different fingers within the constituency getting feedback. That is one way of getting feedback to the representative for that particular constituency. But I can assure you would have seen this even in the North Side. You're going to find that those same people are going to be the ones that are trying to arm themselves to run in one of the elections, and at the same time, somebody's going to accuse them of playing politics. But I like the sound of the idea about 19 representatives and all of them working together, and even your argument about no premier, I think is something I'm going to bounce between my two ears. But definitely, I'm not inclined to agree with saying that you're going to sit there and wait for the public to do it. I don't think it's going to work that way.
No, people are people, and in an environment where there is no head, no leader, then you end up with a situation of the tail wagging the dog. You know how difficult it is to get 10 people to agree on a single policy agreement, let alone 19 people, and no opposition. What you're going to end up with is 19 people, all with their own agenda, all with their own list of priorities, and all with the expectation that all of them need to happen now. And again, I give you an example. We just went through 4 years of that. We had 4 years, 3 different governments. Nobody could work together. Everybody felt they should be in charge, and everybody certainly had their own priorities and how they should go about doing it, so much so that we have a Auditor General in her final hurrah report telling us, once again reminding us of what happens when we spend without responsibility or fiscal prudence. We are spending 51%, taking in 25%. That can't work.
One interjection. I would want to say that there is a difference in terms of 19 persons working together and always getting a majority for a decision versus reaching a consensus.
Yes.
So if it was going to be 19 persons all reaching a consensus, I would completely agree with you. That's probably going to be almost impossible.
Yes.
But I am willing to entertain the idea of 19 persons trying to work together and roughing out the ideas, and somehow you end up with a majority. In other words, a majority of 10 might support one particular decision, and the next particular position could arguably be supported by another 10.
Yes.
It is an argument. Consensus, I completely agree with my colleague, but I like
this argument about corruption. It takes two to tango. Because if persons believe it's only politicians who can be corrupt, but they somehow ignore special interest groups. Listen, special interest groups, a horse by any other name, they are still made up of voters with their own agenda and their own priorities. They are merely lobbying the government to focus on their priorities over everyone else's. It is going to be a nightmare to try to find common ground there.
As I said the other day, Austin, I want persons to understand, you cannot have a corrupt politician unless there's members of the public that are corrupt as well. Okay?
Right.
In order for them to get their pocket, that's how it has to work.
That's a fact. That's a fact. I can't buy your vote if you're not selling it. But we're your host, Austin and Ellio, thanking you for tuning in. Be sure to tune in tomorrow at 4:30 for more